Welcome to How Not to Make Comics. I'm Nil Gravity, and we're gonna continue looking at Weight of Eternity. Alright, I have to do this a little differently than I have before because normally I record the sound at the same time as the visual, but my sound file got corrupted, so now I'm gonna have to guess what I was saying when I was recording this. Alright, so we're looking at WOE, the comic series.com, number 25 to 48, if you're looking at the regular comics. And I wanted to show you guys the Flash version of the comic, because remember I had said that it was I wasn't sure if I inked it in Photoshop, and apparently I had thought about this commentary track idea before, because I used it in the description of this app called the Tarquin Engine that was developed by Daniel Merlin Goodbury. He said in an interview that I used it differently than it was intended to be used, and I'm not really sure what he meant by that, because I don't know what I was doing so differently. And I'm not sure which ones he looked at when he said that, because he might have just saw that I was converting these pages that were not designed for the Tarquin Engine and converting them into Tarquin Engine comics. Okay, I did more than one recording, so I'm not sure if I actually look at the comic or not. Yeah, okay. So, alright, so on the last panel, so here, the main character Ektep, he's showing that he shot a hole through her hand, and he's using some kind of magical tincture to fix it. So he fills it with some kind of gel and wraps it up. And obviously on the last row here, I had just copied the first image and superimposed it onto the first image of the bottom row and imposed it over. Notice how it's side formatted. It's because this was made before we were using our phones to go on the internet, so most computer monitors and TVs are wide, so the wide panels were meant to accommodate the screen we were using at the time. Also, I did color this, and it was originally meant to be in color, but when my original files got ruined. Speaking of files that got corrupted, when the original files got lost and I was rescanning, I didn't feel like recoloring it. If this thing had an audience, then I would have done it. So here, the guy's finishing off killing his buddies, which I went into last time how dumb that was in retrospect. And I like to make the reader kind of work a little bit on it, and so I never explained this, but when you read the comic, the way he finds her address later is she had left her purse behind, so it's safe to assume that her wallet or something is in there that he's able to find her address in. So I'm not sure. I might have actually explained it at some point, that that's why I do this like close-up of her purse, but I'm not sure if I explained it or not, because that's I want a lot of the processing to be done like kind of subconsciously or whatever, and so that the audience has to work for it a little bit. But I think that I tend to go too far with it, or at least that's what I was thinking at one time. I now think that I'm just like not neurotypical. Yeah, so I remember. Oh, so anyway, since I'm not neurotypical, I'm not sure my stories are readable by other humans. That's my concern now. I think the reason I keep circling this black is because of how obvious it is that I didn't use any kind of multiplier or anything to even that black out. But I did have, I remember also talking about in the second panel here, how it's the high contrast style. I started trying to do high contrast because I wasn't liking how hatching and stuff worked out, and a few years later I figured out that I could use textures, different style, like I could use pointillism and hatching and stuff to imitate different textures, and so but I didn't figure that out at this time, so I was doing more high contrast stuff because I felt like it just looked better, and but I don't know if I have the eye for design to do that effectively. I think the second panel is pretty strong. So I don't know how much I really went on about it. Because I'm not multitasking now, it doesn't seem like I need to spend as much time talking about this stuff. So I'll skip ahead a little bit because I don't know what past self was going on about at this point. But they another thing here is the panel with the nudity, which I'm sure I'll obsess about later. Is as an artist, it's good to like push your own boundaries and move outside your comfort zone. And I was definitely trying to do that with Weight of Eternity. And so it wasn't so much like I felt like the comic needed nudity. It's just that I wanted to early kind of show nudity to break my own discomfort with it. So it wasn't like, ooh, I love titties or something, like I wanted to break my own discomfort with it. And I'm releasing a comic as soon as Drive-Thru is back up because they're doing site maintenance or something right now. But it's called Longtooth, and in there I have a naked man fight, and part of that is, doing the same thing, breaking my own discomfort. So, this is another, this comic I often refer to as my David Lynch comic because a lot of it I just had ideas for scenes, and I just kind of trusted those ideas, and I don't know if it always worked, but I like the idea of her holding her hand up to the lamp to see that there was a hole in her hand because she doesn't remember this stuff. Oh, see, now I can see by the little mouse pointer that this is where I was actually talking about the nudity. I don't know by how much since I'm hovering over the next button now. The hand in the fourth panel is kind of messed up. I don't know how much I've improved on drawing hands. Alright. Yeah, so this one I think compositionally, I like most of this page alright. Her in the fourth panel, the second to last panel, she her face is a little weird, but overall not too bad. Yeah. Oh, well, I guess the more I look at that second panel, the weirder it is. Yeah, so story-wise, this is I just was trying to establish space, and so I had it. This is where she's looking at him, and he appears on the other side of the room. Because what he does is walk between, he basically physically walks on the astral plane. He doesn't actually teleport, so it's not instant. In the original comic here, there was a poster for a band called Milkplow. It was I forget what the other poster was, but the Milkplow was a reggae metal band bar band in Chicago that were really good, especially live, because the guy had some powerful fucking pipes. But I was really into them, so I showed some love. I think I remember in the original commentary on this that I was talking about his outfit because the idea is that it's not just to be mysterious, but I figured that he would conceal himself not because he's modest, but because he gets too much. It's basically people can't control themselves when they see him because he's inhuman looking. His skin's not normal skin tone, and then another issue too is that at some point I decided that he has the cloak to cover up. He's got a second set of eyes, and the cloak helps dampen some sensory information because he's got a sensory issue where every time he experiences something, it reminds him of things that's happened to him before. It's total recall, but since he's an immortal, he's got a ton of memories. So here I'm trying to establish his thing against technology. I don't know if it works or if it's interesting to people, but it helps reestablish him conceptually that he's old. And there was supposed to eventually be that you learn a twist that he's not really the Luddite he pretends to be. There's a reason he doesn't use technology. It's not just he's old and therefore doesn't understand or like technology. And he's actually playing up his lack of understanding of technology. He's not technologically savvy, but he's playing up how inefficient he is with technology. I don't know. Lack of proficiency. I don't know how to describe it. Again, pay attention to how inconsistent I am with likeness. Her face is so different in every panel. I want to make a comment about her haircut, but I think I'm going to cover it in the next video. We'll see. So I like the contrasty stuff. I'm mostly okay with this page. There's probably less background than I do. I don't plan for speech bubbles very well. Still. Oh yeah, if when we get to the Flash version, the Flash versions of the comics are the original comics that I published, or when the first run of this webcomic. I don't remember if I ran it on a blog or how I did it, or through my website. It was through my website, I think. At any rate, they on the lettering when you get to the Flash comics is not as good, and not just because I had an issue with the quality on the Flash, and that was another reason I decided to rescan the comic and not just leave the Flash comics up, is because for some reason in Flash I would import the text balloons over from Illustrator, and they would just be like super shitty quality and unreadable in some places. So I wanted to make a version of the comic that was readable, and it was really I never could resolve that. And I had an issue with the comic I published in a newspaper too, where all the text would look like garbage, and I could never fix it. And I don't know what the problem was. It wasn't even if at a higher resolution, it was still a problem. So, and here he's saying that she was drugged, and that was me trying to explain, because like I said, I just had an idea for these scenes, and I was trying to make sense of them, when it was really more like a dream. I should have just embraced sort of the dreamlike logic of the situation instead of overthinking it so much. Now, the reason she's drinking tea becomes important later. I like this first panel still. I think it's pretty clever, and I like that I included the little bits of tea. And I was already thinking about that texture thing, as you can see on the bandages. I was considering that. In the original colored version of the comic, she has tattoos also. At the time, I didn't have any tattoos, and I wasn't really interested in tattoos till later. I got some ideas. Well, I might have had the idea for the tattoo at the time. Anyways, I'm not a tattoo guy, but because other people like tattoos, and I know I'm not normal, I try to include characters who have tattoos and piercings and stuff that I'm not as interested in. I don't know why I started backing up on this comic on the original run. It's interesting to me how much faster I'm able to talk through this now that I'm not trying to walk and chew gum at the same time. So, yeah. The thing is, I don't know how fast I could whip through it either if I didn't previously record it. So I don't think I would do it this way. I just don't want to have to deal with recording it again. I really hope you can't pick up my huskies howling. They're like so far. They're really far away, but they're loud. Fuck, it's only 7 a.m. What little assholes. Okay, so here's where the tea becomes kind of more important. I was going for magic realism in the series, and so here are these two guys who you think I'm trying to set them up to be kind of Men in Black. That was the idea, is that the audience would see this and be like, oh, okay, these are Men in Black of some kind. And so what they're doing is they're looking up, this scene is supposed to reveal that that Ektep had given the girl the woman, I should say. She's not a girl at all. The tea, so that way he could read her fortune, and then he smushed it. So, and they know it's Ektep because the radio in the bathroom was smashed. And I never, like I said, I never got around to the scene that reveals that it wasn't him that smashed it. There's something else going on. Okay, and at some point I was going to do a sequel. Oh yeah, so I thought that there was, this is funny because I changed the dialogue and stuff a lot, and I still do this to a degree. I like these wide panels, but but you can see how I have all this room, and I don't know. I kind of like it in a way because it gives it like a more of a heaviness that fits his exaggerated gestures and stuff. The faces are somewhat consistent on this too. I'm kind of happy with that. Like, it looks like the same character. So the mustache on the head, alright, so the idea of this, okay, so I did this in like, I don't know, like 2003 or 4 or something like that. And I guess I was out of art school at the time. So, but what's funny about the idea of this was that I was kind of poking fun at fashion to a degree. So I gave him like a turtleneck and a forehead mustache. And what's funny about that is I have since seen people with that haircut now. Some of the scenes I draw it way too low. It's below his actual hairline, or where his hairline would be. But it is funny that I sort of predicted that this would be like a fashion choice in the future, and and here we are with somebody, and it turns out that there are people who cut their hair like this now. I had never seen it at the time. I was just making shit up to make fun of things. All right, so here's where she's taking public transit to move. There's some weird things going on here. All right, so first of all, I was kind of interested in the fact that I drew her ass, and I'm not sure if I focused on her ass or on female asses more than anyone else. Oh yeah, here I'm pointing out that the guy's arm goes missing. It really should have continued past that bar, and the window should have too, probably. But yeah, the guy sitting behind her's the arm's weird, and then her hand's in a weird position too. Yeah, it just looks odd. Probably because her fingers are too flat. There's weird things going on with her neck, and her chest is weird. I think I was trying not to make her boobs look too big because I did a self-portrait, and I was just rendering the chest normal, and everybody said that I drew myself super buff, and I was pretty buff at the time because I was like 15 and super skinny, but but it's still kind of like, when you learn to draw from looking at comics, then it's easy to exaggerate. Yeah, so I like that last panel. I like it a lot. Now I was trying to convey how heavy the bag was. Like this wasn't supposed to be like a TNA comic, but now that I'm older, I'd be interested to see how often I drew her ass more than the other character's ass. Oh, I just realized the guy that's sitting behind her, I drew him with no laces in his shoes. Like, intentionally no laces in his shoes. That's interesting. Oh, yeah. So, I tried to push myself to do more backgrounds and stuff, but clearly I'm awful at it. I don't know if I've improved that much on it. I hate to shit on myself. So, here's an example that kind of remedies. So, here she is holding her back. Again, I was trying to emphasize all that. She's carrying a bunch of shit she doesn't need. It's heavy. So it's supposed to be kind of funny. I don't know. I was amused by it at the time. That she doesn't have any luggage or anything. She just put everything in a garbage bag. But to kind of prove that I'm not just drawing TNA here, I could have easily included her ass in this panel too. And I didn't. It looks a little weird, but that her other leg would have been shaded here originally in the coloring process. So I hope then it looked fine, but not that this foreshortening is good. I do try to play with angles a lot, to convey mood and stuff. I thought I closed all my... One second. Yeah. So I like that last panel with the door knocker. That looks pretty good, I think. Alright, I do not know it just beeped because I have all my social media closed, so I'm not sure what did that. I lost the player. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what was going on the screen because I clicked away. Alright. I might have to truncate some of this silence out, so if there's spaces where I talking about things and it's not actually in here, that means I edited it, so hopefully I edited it down, because I know that this video was going to be like 40 minutes long, which I'm fine with when I was filling the time, but now this is actually my third recording. I don't know what I'm saying about the door knocker here. I do think it looks nice though. Like, I'm okay with having the proportions weird and stuff when it looks stylized like that, but like 80% of the time when my stuff is drawn badly, or it's not style, it's just bad lack of draftsmanship. Okay, so here she's pointing out the hickeys. The hickeys are important later, so she's got one and they have one. But because I didn't recolor it, you can't actually see them on this. Oh yeah, and here's the piercings again. I tried to make characters that were cooler than me, or I was hoping it would kind of adopt its own style. I was probably playing too much Vampire the Masquerade at the time. Whatever World of Darkness game I was playing at the time. I didn't get my group was more into werewolf than vampire, but you probably get what I'm saying. Anyways, I was just about to say something else about this page. One thing I was already interested in at the time of this comic is the idea of multiracial characters. So I tried to include characters that were multiracial. I don't know what started me on that path, but so I tried to make some characters that were more racially ambiguous. At the time, I thought I was part Native American, so that might have been part of it. Here, the Escher joke isn't actually to cover the bad. I can't remember if it was. No, I knew that joke was written in there before. I'm pretty sure I actually drew that in there, even though my rendering is bad. Oh, and the painting, and I think this tapestry had art on it to try to make it more interesting, but terrible at backgrounds. It's still not great at it. Yeah, I'm only happy with the close-up of the bag. The close-up of the bag's alright. I'm good at drawing trash bags, apparently. I'm kind of okay with her shoes, but the rest of her body, I think her shoes are kind of interesting looking, at least. See that? The shoes and some of the stuff looks stylized. Oh, you can see, I probably over-rendered because he's flexing the shit out of his muscles. But I don't know. I think that might have been me trying to objectify the character too, because it's sort of like a Dom sub thing. He's like a sub or servant or whatever, but I didn't really know anything about that world at the time, so I don't know how clear it is that that's what's going on with it. I don't know. I don't really get it now. I have friends who are into that stuff, and I don't really understand it. I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe conceptually, but it's not my thing, so how much can I really understand it? Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with his arm, even though it's probably over-rendered or whatever, because like I said, it crosses the line from, bad draftsmanship into stylistic, so, yeah, a lot of stuff in here seems like style choices. Her face in that last panel is just awful, and I think at the time I tried redrawing it a couple times and it just wasn't happening, so I just kind of went with it, hoping that I could fix it in Photoshop or something. I don't know how much I was really counting on that. Perspective's also weird on the bed. I don't know. So I can see how I was playing with composition a lot, but it only works in the regular panels, I think. The composition's okay on both of those. But this last one, trying to play with different, how we interpret different spaces, and I don't feel like it works. Maybe if I had done a silhouette of the character in the foreground and then just left his piercings, that would have worked out good. Oh yeah, here's me trying to do 3-point perspective. Awful at it. Really awful. I ended up blacking out the one side because I screwed everything up so bad. That shot's kind of important though, because it's supposed to show how many stories up her apartment is. The second and third panel, the other panels I'm alright with. I really like how I did the background still. It's kind of, it looks stylized, and yeah, I think if I could hold that level of quality all the time, I'd be doing a lot better with my comics career, if you want to call it that. Yeah, because it would definitely look more style and not. I like to define style as accumulation of mistakes, and I don't think I make the same mistakes consistently enough to do that. I should have rewatched the episode too. I should have rewatched the first episode of this to make sure I don't cover the same ground a lot. So next time I'll have to get more familiar with what I already said on this podcast or whatever we're going to call it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, his hands and body language are nice. I think that's funny. This whole time I've been bitching about about the perspective on that first panel, and now I'm more interested in what I did right. And that I really like that third panel. Yeah, it just it looks very underground comicsy. And last panel, I mean, it's acceptable. Not great, but it's acceptable. The establishing shot, awful. Apparently I'm going on about that again. Or I was when I first recorded this. And the middle two panels I really like. Like, I would feel a lot better about my art if everything I drew was at least that level. But it's not. Oh, one thing I didn't note on this one is I doubled the size that I was drawing this, because I was basically doing thumbnails and then digitally inking them, and so I doubled the size and then I was physically inking them. So that's the difference between these and the okay, so the Sirens one, the one about the firefighter, that story, that was digitally inked. Okay. I still like the setup for this panel. It's fun. I love the first, or this page. The first panel, that's a strong composition, even though the rail kind of ruins it. And if I had drawn like the city below, that would have made things look a lot better. The second panel, Eric Larson once said that if you want to show someone getting hit hard, you draw them upside down. And so I love that trick. Like, whenever I want to show someone flying through the air. I don't like the tangent on his foot in the second panel. Oh, hold on. So my previous self is talking about that rail. If I had flipped it to where you saw the outside of the rail, I think that it would have worked better. But when I drew it at the time, I think I tried it and it didn't look right. But I think I was on the right track. It just didn't look as good. But anyways, I don't like the tangent on his foot in the second panel, but I needed to show that he was on the outside of the rail. So, yeah. So, and I like this setup too. I think that it would work well for like a movie or whatever. Like, a lot of the action in here is pretty good. Like, him doing a handstand and swinging down is pretty badass. And again, the guy's almost upside down. You see his feet in the air. And here I widened the gutters so I could show Saul falling. Which I still think it's a pretty effective trick. I mean, not everybody might get it, but it was a pretty clever use of the gutters, I think. I was really interested in the idea of parallel narratives because in the Men Without Fear documentary that came with the old Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, Frank Miller talks about how, well, it's sort of like the idea percolated because of a combination of what Frank Miller says on there and what David Mack says. Because David Mack, he talks about how, the comics are very symbiotic, basically, because the reader and the audience are kind of working together to tell the story. And Frank Miller kind of reinforces that by talking about how, like, a director can control how fast you read a comic by just leaving the camera roll longer, but it's a little harder for a cartoonist to control how fast or slow someone reads. And so that got me interested in the idea that a novel, it's completely the speed of the reader, pretty much, unless, you filibuster. When you watch a movie, it's the creators who completely control the pace of how fast you consume that. And so comics are somewhere in between, and that gave me the idea that comics can do parallel narrative better than just about any other media, because you can absorb it the audience can absorb it at the rate that they can handle it. Where in a movie, if they do a split screen, it's real easy to get lost in what's going on, or you're gonna focus on one side more than the other or something. So I might not be entirely right, but I suspect that I am, because we don't see that split screen trick done that often in movies. Let's see here. So I'm not done talking about the comic in here. I'm pretty sure I covered everything just now that I covered in the original recording. What sucks about re-recording the sound too is that my voice is kind of garbage right now. Okay, so yeah, this page. So I thought that I was going to be able to digitally put in the buildings, because at that time I had some 3D programs. I don't know. I think what happened was I updated my computer, or got a computer with a new version of Windows, and then my software didn't work anymore, which sucks. And the internet was shit back then. We're still on dial-up, so there wasn't a bunch of freeware that I knew of. So Yeah, this would have been a lot more effective if the building that he was falling off of was still in the panel. Yeah, so I do like that the girl, at some point, I know I talked about it in the recording, that the girl in the first panel has a flower print on her dress. That's like a level of detail I don't always achieve. I don't really care about clothes. Like, I'm not a fashionable guy at all. And I think it shows in my drawing how little I think about it. Yeah. And I threw in somebody with a wedding ring, because at the time I wasn't married. So I like that third panel. I really like this gag where they look up, or they look down, and then they look up to see if there's any kind of clue. And then while they're all looking away, he disappears. But it doesn't really work when you can't see the building. And also the fact that they're all looking straight up, I don't know if that works or not. I would have to like throw a looming building in there to see if it worked. You would think some people would be looking behind them, because they wouldn't assume he's a skydiver. They would think he fell off of one of the buildings. So here he is. Sorry for all the creaking. There he is, running up the many stairs and jumping over the rails. This sort of a reverse. My family business used to be on the 5th floor of a building in downtown Chicago. Well, not downtown, but West Loop, whatever. Anyways, so my dad was always afraid we'd get stuck in the elevator on the way home, so we'd race down the stairs, and I'd have to jump over the rails to keep up with him. So I was kind of reversing that with this. And it also established that he's got super strength, that he's able to leap over the banisters. So this, I don't think this is clear here that he's coming through the stairwell exit. And then that perspective in that second panel sucks. He's like looking almost straight at us. The foreshortening is awful. The drawing of his face is awful. I don't mind the gun part, just his face is awful in that. And then I used a broken border to emphasize the force that the door is being broken down, and his foot. So, what is that? Breaking the frame? What's the term for that? I did it with a word balloon too, but I don't know if that was a good idea. So here you see Glenn shooting, presumably at the guy that you fought before, or that we saw him fighting. And Saul looks up and doesn't see the guy, and that's yeah. But there's a reason I don't show him like scrambling up the building or whatever, because he's not currently there. Those bullets are for show. I like that I have him jumping over the bed, because I was thinking about the physical space that they're in, and that the bed would have been in the way, so he's jumping over. And plus, it just kind of I'm all right with that. I like the body language and the dynamicism. I'm pretty okay with that second panel. The first panel, it's always bugged me that his face looks weird there. I don't know if that bothers anybody but me. And his hand's like too flat or whatever. It doesn't look like he's holding the gun with two hands. I screwed that up. And then the other panels are just weird with their faces. Like, I don't know, they don't look right. I think I said in the last one too how like what I should have done was learn how to draw a face and then diversify, but I was so focused on making everybody look different. Like I forgot how detailed Saul's nose was. Like he's got a very particular shape to his nose, and where Glenn, his face is just a mess all the time. Oh yeah, I do like that drawing of Saul. That's a pretty good drawing. And yeah, I just wish the Glenn next to him wasn't as good. What's funny now that I think about it too is, so Saul's name is alliteration, and which you'll see why later. Some of you might figure it out before that. But Glenn, I totally don't think it's alliteration. I was just like, I want him to have a boring name, because he's like a boring throwaway character, so he should have a boring throwaway name. And it's probably a good thing my Uncle Glenn will never listen to this. He might be offended that I insulted his name. This character was not named after my Uncle Glenn. I might have forgot I had an Uncle Glenn at the time. I don't know if that's true. So I'm really fighting the urge to go off on a tangent about my Uncle Glenn. Because he's really into gaming and stuff, and I've never gotten a game with him. So he's like the uncle I probably have the most in common with, but I never had any kind of relationship with him either. But he had a butt ton of kids, so. And they're all close in age to me. And he's super religious. Okay, so, oh, I guess we're far enough into this where I wanted to bring up the sponsor of this show. The sponsor being me. Wow, man, watching myself type, I'm slow at typing. So my comic Cyberpunks is now on Comixology. I don't know if that's a spoiler. So the easiest way to look it up, because they give you weird URLs, is to put in NIL Gravity, because that's the publisher. Bam! And Cyberpunks is the only title I have up there right now. And they only have, when I recorded this, only the first issue was up. But there's now the second, and I got an email from them that the third issue has been approved. Maybe the fourth and fifth also. Here I was kind of joking about rating myself. I did undo it after I was recording. I didn't leave it as a rating, because I get weird guilt about shit, and it says customer rating, and I'm not a customer, so it kind of, I don't know, it bothered me that I rated myself, and I think it's kind of tacky anyway. So if you want to help me out by going to Comixology and rating Cyberpunks, it'd be better if you actually read it, but I know some people have gotten it on drive-thru, and some people actually got the physical book I put out. I did like 10 issues, or I did like 20 copies, not 10 issues. I know I was really liking the interface on here for some reason. I don't remember why I was. The book looks pretty good. I gotta say, I do like it. I am a lot. Yeah, I actually hand draw Cyberpunks, and I color it in vectors, and so it uses my two different drawing styles, and it like kind of works them together. And I think it's pretty effective, but throughout the series you'll still see some of my weird anatomy stuff, and I don't know, but it looks much more on purpose in there. So I wasn't sure if I don't know why I'm still clicking around Comixology. I think I might have been going on a tirade about how I don't know how to look up the sales. So yeah, check out Cyberpunks and subscribe so that way you'll know when I do the third part of How Not to Make Comics, where we continue looking at Weight of Eternity.